Hey everyone, and welcome to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, and joining me, as always, is Tim.
Hello.
Hello. Also, Tim's cats demanding attention. Camera loves her apparently. This is Screams After Midnight is a horror movie podcast. We talk about horror films every week. Now, normally that means we watch a horror movie and then we come here and we sit and talk about it and maybe do some movie news and all that kind of thing. This is not that type of episode. This is a special episode because this is going to be a countdown episode, meaning that we are going to list and rank films based on our preferences. I have made my list. Tim has made his list. And what list have we made this time? We have made our top 50 horror movies of the decade list, because that's right, we're nearing the very, very, very end of 2019, and that means, or in fact, by the time this goes up, it might actually be 2020, but it means that it is time to actually look back not only on the year, but in the decade as a whole. So these films are all from 2010 to 2019, and this will be part 1 of 2. This will be our first 25, so this will be numbers 50 through 26. Tim will give his number 50, I'll give my number 50, we'll explain them a little bit, and we'll just go from there. We'll alternate, and we'll be here for a while, probably, and hopefully we'll get some recommendations, and some cool movies will be recommended. And, you know, for the record, there's still movies from this decade that I've still not gotten around to see, that I wished I could have in time, and that's just the way it is. Hopefully we'll get to some of those later, but this is our top 50 as it stands right now at the very end of the decade. We are mere days from Christmas as we record this first half. So, yes. Which is why there's Christmas lights up, because it's probably too late for a Christmas tree by the time this actually is public. Yeah. But, so, with all that said, Tim, did you have a hard time with this one? Was this
I thought I was going to, not because there, haven't been a lot of good movies. I actually think this was a really good decade for horror, but just more, trying to think of stuff and, remembering like, oh, what year did that come out? But actually, when I sat down to do it, it was not too bad. Like I probably, was able to come up with like, 30-ish something movies on my own, and then the rest I would kind of, like looked at other lists to kind of like jog my memory of like stuff of like, oh yeah, I forgot that came out or whatever. I think it was like a little easy for me because I moved to LA in like late 2012. So it was really easy to think of like, when I would think of a movie, it'd be like, all right, did that come out this decade? And I was like, oh yeah, of course, because I saw it in California. So like, yeah, it had to have. Yeah, it wasn't too hard. I think, like a lot of lists, you have a good amount that you kind of get down, and then, I think what kind of gave me trouble was maybe some of the placements in this. But actually thinking of the movies wasn't too hard, and then eventually I did have like a little left over. Like there's probably not a ton, but maybe like between like 5 and 10 movies that I was like could have been on the list, but eventually I had to cut or whatever. But
yeah, I just can't wait to see how high The Visit is in your list.
Oh jeez. Doing the best of the year. No, I mean, as much as I was saying that I do think it is a good decade for horror, I mean, yeah, we could still easily also do a worst of list as well.
Oh yeah, and easily 50 as well. Like, it's not even just like it had to be a shorter list. We could easily do a worst 50 of the decade. We actually just did a worst 50 of all time in October, so we feel a little bit redundant, especially since a lot of that list was stuff from this decade. Because this is the thing, because we do this show, we see a lot of crap, and I definitely see more crap on a consistent basis because of this show than I did before. So not much point in doing it, but you can go check out that top 50 if you wish from earlier in the year. So without further ado, Tim, we're going to kick off with your number 50. So let us begin.
Wait. Actually, one thing I was going to mention before we start.
Okay.
I don't know if you want to do this, but
okay.
Do you want to make a prediction of what each other's number 1 is, and then we'll see if it's right at the end?
So obviously yours is going to be The Boy. I mean, that's not. I mean, I'm joking. I mean,
We don't have to do it. I don't know if you think it'll be too spoilery, because I'm pretty sure I know what your number one's going to be. But
yeah, I think you can guess my number one. I'm not 1,000,000% sure on yours. That was.
okay.
Hmm.
Maybe we'll keep it in our heads, and then we can see if
Yes.
our predictions are right. Okay.
Nice. I've got one in my head.
Okay. All right. Well, then I'll start with my number 50 then, which I can almost guarantee is not going to be on your list, because I think you are really didn't like it, especially compared to me. But my number 50 is The Hallow. I think, it's that was like a nice little movie, rural horror, changelings. I like the mythology of it. I think I was really hyped on it when I first watched it, and I've seen it like once or twice since then, which has cooled it a little bit for me. Hence why it's number 50 and not higher up. But I still think it's a solid, nice little horror movie.
Between this and The Hole in the Ground, Ireland's got a lot to answer for this decade.
And will this be the only entry from this director on my list? Who knows? Because he has done The Nun, so we'll see if The Nun shows up. I won't spoil anything, but
well, any more films? How many films of this director after this will show up in your list? My guess is none.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, see, you're not the only one who can do comedy, Tim. So
yeah, it's easy. That's why I do it.
My number 50 is Paranormal Activity 3, which I think is the best of Paranormal Activity movies. I think it added just enough of interesting stuff to the mythology to really make it feel like it was adding a substantial amount. I think having the two kids be kind of the focus was a really interesting diversion from just the adults being the focus. It made it feel like it was really about them. The ending's probably the best ending of the series as well. I feel like it did a lot of really cool stuff, and I really felt like this could have just been the ending of the franchise. I feel like
totally.
This could just be it, And it went downhill immediately after this one. But I think in terms of this particular franchise, I think the third one was the peak of its creativity and the peak of also just its raw kind of creepiness and the raw, just the concept of what these movies are. This was the one that kind of did its best with it. Because the first one was a pretty solid little movie for what it was. I thought 2 was fine, just kind of more of the same. I think the third one evolved it enough to make it feel like it had done enough new things.
That's what's great about this one, is it actually feels like it's doing something kind of different. Like it's finding new trick. Like, the first one, obviously it's the first one. And we hadn't really had that many found footage movies at the time. Like, I mean, people talk about Blair Witch being the, kind of like the first horror found footage movie, but we really didn't see anything after it for a long time. Like, this movie was what, kind of started the found footage boom for horror.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah. And I think, the first one's really solid. And then really it's like, the first one and the third one are the only movies I feel like you need to see, because everything else just feels kind of the same. And it seems like it gradually gets worse. But the third one is actually like genuinely good, and finds really creative ways to have the scares and everything in it. So it's a very solid movie. That's a good pick.
Yeah, they basically shook things up so much by just putting the camera on like a fan that oscillated so that it would move back and forth, and that just added so much to like the movie compared to the previous ones. So yeah, that's my number 50. What was your 49?
This one is kind of tough because I don't know. You think of a lot of different things, that goes into stuff that you're putting on the list. So this one, it's more than just the movie for me. Like, I feel like there's a lot of things surrounding it, but my number 49 is It Chapter 1, which again, the It movies, they're not really great horror movies, and then we really, really, really did not like Chapter 2, but I still think like
the first chapter poo more like.
Yes. Less good than your nun pun, but I'll take it. But no,
Sam, there's going to be a crossover, so it's going to be It Chapter None. That's going to be
Oh.
that's going to be the crossover.
Oh,
Pennywise versus the Nun.
I wouldn't put it past them. Those movies did so well. I wouldn't be surprised they try to find more Pennywise stuff to do. But no, like the first movie, again, the horror is still really lackluster, but I think there's a lot more interesting stuff. The story is more captivating. All the stuff with the kids is a lot more interesting. There's still a lot of bad stuff to it, but I mean, like I said, sometimes when you're making a list, it kind of goes beyond the movie a little bit. But like to me, this also kind of signifies like the kind of renaissance of King that we've been experiencing, and as everyone knows, I love Stephen King and stuff. So it's cool to see him get like kind of some like big name popular recognition again with like a really big blockbuster movie, and even like the other King movies that I've done that are more beloved. I don't know if any has been like a huge hit. Like it's cool to see that he gets a big hit under his belt. So yeah, I felt like it was worthy enough to put on the list, even though it's not the horror aspect of it isn't the best.
Yeah, I like the kids' relationships and their sort of little team, but the horror stuff I wasn't too fond of. So, but hey ho, my number 49. That's another pretty sort of mainstream kind of one that everyone knows. Is that is The Conjuring is my 49, which I think is a really solid haunted house movie, and I think Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga really make the whole thing work as Ed and Lorraine Warren. I think James Wan's direction obviously is the big thing here. So it's one of these things where this movie is obviously very highly regarded in the horror community, and it's a 49 for me because I like it a lot, but I don't love it necessarily as much as some other stuff. I mean, I am on the record of another James Wan movie being my favorite between the two, but we'll get to that later. But Conjuring is really solid, and it does a really great thing where it keeps getting more inventive with its scares, and it keeps kind of building the I think it's unique because there's like 5 daughters in the family, which is a kind of unique setup, and it plays with the daughters kind of witnessing things happening to each other. And I think the main memories I have of this movie tend to be the 2 girls who share a room, and like one of them seeing stuff and the other one not, and kind of like all that stuff kind of going up, and everyone remembers the clapping stuff and all the rest of it. So yeah, Conjuring.
Yeah, and then and we talk a lot about kind of how bad a lot of mainstream Hollywood horror is, but James Wan seems to be one of the few people that can kind of get it right. Like I feel like Conjuring is a great example of like, oh no, you can have a mainstream big budget Hollywood horror movie and still actually be good, still have like atmosphere and tension and be creepy. So no, yeah, that's a very solid pick.
Well, yeah, all my picks are solid. I've got a fantastic list.
We'll see.
Yeah, what's your 48?
So this is like a newer one, that we did not too long ago. And that is a Terrifier. It's a just a nice solid kind of slasher movie, but does stuff that you wouldn't expect. I guess maybe normally think of in that genre, and it's it's a nice like Halloween watch, and it doesn't shy away from like being really brutal and the gore and everything. So yeah, just a really nice solid movie.
It's downright brutal. Art the Clown's a pretty great modern horror villain, and I'm glad there's a sequel on the way. So no, that's good. My number 48 is Howl. So this is a British werewolf movie set on a train that breaks down and ends up being attacked by a werewolf. It's one of those things where like I watched this during October, or maybe just before October. It was kind of around then, and wasn't sure what to expect. But it essentially turns into one of those survival movies where your characters are all kind of trapped in this one location. In this case, it's the train, and it's like, okay, how can we try and get out here? Can we get the train moving again? Can we contact for help? It's like the dead-eye train ride at like 2 a.m, and the werewolves look pretty good. The CG is not always great, but the werewolf design's kind of interesting. Has a kind of a unique look to it, which is kind of nice. But yet, what you really have is an interesting cast of characters who, throughout the course of the film, some of them are likable, some of them are unlikable. There's definitely the one who's the most villainous, who by the end of the movie you're just praying for the werewolf to get to. But it's a pretty solid little adventure, a little survival movie. It's a group of characters who are all very different and distinct, having to work together even though they mostly don't like each other.
Okay.
So I'm into it.
Yeah, actually, I've never seen this one, so that sounds pretty cool. So I have to check it out.
What is your 47?
So another one from this year actually, and that would be Child's Play, the 2019 version, obviously, the remake. It's again, we had a lot to say. It's very different than the original. Probably didn't need to be called Child's Play, but regardless of that, though, it's a really fun movie. I think that there's a lot of like pretty cool, interesting kills. It actually is doing something different. It's not just replaying off the old movie or having a bunch of fan servicey stuff. It really stands out on its own, and I think there's a lot of cool, interesting stuff about it. So I was pretty pleasantly surprised for this movie, which I was going in was really, really sure it was going to just be awful, but I was wrong. And hey, it doesn't happen often, but I love when it does.
Doesn't happen often. Yeah, right. No, pleasant surprise. Not amazing, but pleasant surprise all the same. Had its own thing. My number 47 is another number 3 actually. Insidious Chapter 3 is my number 47, which I found to be, because I went into this kind of skeptical, and 2 wasn't as good as 1, although I still enjoyed it. And this was a different director. This was Lee Wannell taking over directing duties, who's about to do The Invisible Man. And I actually was pleasantly surprised that it was a pretty solid standalone, story in the Insidious universe. It took in the mythology of the father and all that stuff, and it was kind of a prequel because it brought, obviously, it was Lin Shaye was in it and stuff. But I found myself just caring about this new character and this new story, because 2 maybe I enjoyed 2, but arguably it was a bit convoluted to like make it all work with the first movie. Whereas 3 was no, this is just another story set inside this world, and there's a couple of references to stuff for that it kind of syncs up and makes you realize it's in the same world. But other than that, it's just a really good standard little own horror story, a little haunting. And it's this teenage girl who's injured in a car accident and is kind of unable to walk for the duration of the film. She's got broken legs and she's like on the mend, so it makes her really vulnerable and gives it a very different, distinct feel to the family and the house. And and not even just that, she's in an apartment building. She's like it's not the same kind of setting at all, so it kind of shakes things up enough, but it still feels like an Insidious movie. And given that the 4th one I thought was actually quite disappointing, I think it's quite impressive that 3 actually turned out as well as it did. So, no, that's my number 47.
No, it's a great movie, and I was also really surprised again, because whenever you have like some type of changeover in a franchise, it's and obviously like Lee Wannell works pretty closely with James Wan, so it's a natural fit. But you're still like a little skeptical. But I was really, really surprised how much I like this, and honestly, I think it has some of the best scares of the franchise.
Yeah. I actually haven't seen it since the theater. I haven't seen it since it came out. But
I've seen it a couple of times. I really like it.
Anyway, what's your number 46?
All right. So this one, a little more, I guess, veering into comedy territory, but so I guess it would be like a horror comedy. But Tucker and Dale versus Evil, just really fun, little horror movie that. Kind of, it's a very nice twist on like the slasher franchise, and then kind of having it's a really neat, fun little idea of like this perspective of these crazy inbred cannibal killers that are just like 2 normal guys, and the kind of teenagers keep accidentally killing themselves. It's really funny. There's a lot of laughs, and just a nice little take on that thing.
Yeah, it's a fun movie. Honestly, I actually forgot to consider this. I don't know if it would have made my list, but like I like a lot. Obviously, Alan Tudyk's in there, who I like quite a bit. And like you say, the running gag of the movie is that the kids, have convinced themselves there's these two killers after them, but they're actually just killing themselves accidentally over and over again. Well, I say over, you know what I mean, like all the different characters. There's no time loop elements. My number 46 is Krampus from 2016, whatever year that was.
Sounds about right, yeah.
And I like this as a kind of a Gremlins-esque kind of movie where it was kind of fun and wacky, a lot of practical effects. It was, you know, they're trapped kind of in almost this snowy blizzard bubble of where the house is, and all this stuff's happening to them. Adam Scott's in there. You know, I dug it. It reminded me of a movie like that you might have got in the 80s. And obviously, it was the director of Trick or Treat who did it, and obviously he went on to do the new Godzilla movie. And I feel like this was kind of perfect for him and his sensibilities. It was all these, you know, like various toys coming to life, and Krampus itself, of course. So, like, I was into it a lot. And, you know, we don't get a lot of big Christmas horror movie releases. Obviously, there's a lot of them that exist, but in terms of stuff that's in the theaters that I can go see, very few of them exist, and they tend to suck, the ones that get released that way. So I was delighted to watch Krampus and feel like, oh, this was like an old school Christmas movie. I'm kind of into it.
Oh no, yeah, I definitely agree. Actually, I forgot to put this. This is one I didn't really think of putting on my list.
You hack.
But it's a good placement for it though, because it is good and fun, but like. I feel like the problem is it doesn't go far enough with the horror. Like, it's pretty tame as far as, like, you know, kills and, like, really isn't any gore. And not that, because of the type of the movie it is, like you said, it feels like an 80s Gremlins kind of movie. Like, you know, it admittedly, you know, it shouldn't be like super gory or anything, but I do wish the horror was just you know, touched up just a bit. But you know, otherwise, yeah, really fun. And hey, if you love you know, the Krampus character, may I recommend the Goatman Winter Special, where which Krampus features prominently in. So you can check that out. It's available now.
Yeah. So who wrote Goatman the Winter Special, Tim? Who's behind that?
Oh, that would be me.
Yes. You shall. What is your number 45?
So this one. So I just had a horror comedy before, and then this, I guess technically you wouldn't label as a comedy like off the bat, but after you watch it, it was probably one of like the horror movies I laughed at the most in like recent memory, and that would be Sadako versus Kayako. So you know, this is the the Ring versus The Grudge. You know, it seems like it's funny because like can't really think of too many foreign movies that we've seen like a versus of, but when it was announced, I was like, okay, that sounds weird, but I'll be interested to see. And then watching it, it was so much crazier and more bizarre than I was thinking it would be. And I think it's, you know, not necessarily a well-made movie or anything, like, you know, but it's so balls to the wall crazy and insane that I think it's well worth a watch, and it's just super fun, and again, you get like, I couldn't help but laugh so much throughout it.
As an experience, I will say that it's funny. I feel like I've forgotten like 90% of it. Like, I feel like it's so. I vaguely remember them having to find a VCR to play the tape early on. I vaguely remember like a sort of like psychic character who's got like a girl helper, and I remember a little bit of the fight, but like I need to revisit that one at some point. But that is yes, that is your 45. My number 45 is actually I have got one that's kind of recent from this year, and that is The Perfection. This was the movie that ended up as a Netflix release, and it's about these two musicians, these two women who are traveling together, and one of them gets very sick, and you know, as if they've caught some sort of plague or maybe even a supernatural disease or something like that. And I can't even tell you any more than that because the movie has so many twists and turns, and when you realize what it's actually about, let's just say it goes places. It goes places, and it was one where when we were talking about it earlier this year, it was like a lot of it was like, holy shit, and then it went here, and then it did this, and then it pulled this trick on us. Very interesting. It had a couple of good performances as well. You had Logan Browning from Dear White People, and you had from Get Out. I can't remember her name. Alison Williams. Did I say? Over there.
Sounds about right.
I think I've done it. I think I've done it. Yeah, look at me. I'm dead smart. Um,
And
but
of course, a great Steven Weber as like really truly horrible character.
he definitely gets a part. Yeah,
Yeah.
he definitely gets a a memorable.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah. No, this is a really great movie. I like this quite a bit, and then that ending shot is really great. And yeah, like you said, there's a lot of twists and turns. It keeps it very interesting all throughout, and yeah, and then it's another one of these kind of movies that I feel like a good thing for the decade is a lot of like socially relevant stuff, and
oh
there's
sure,
like an
yeah,
aspect of that in it, which is really cool.
yeah, lot of social relevant stuff in these this decade overall. So what was your number 44?
So another somewhat recent one, an anthology movie I liked quite a bit called Nightmare Cinema. So yeah, I think it's a really solid movie. I was surprised at with anthologies movies, it's always hard because it's like all right, sometimes you get maybe one good one, a couple of okay ones or whatever, but I think almost everyone with the exception of like the last the very last story, I think these were all like really solid, and to the point where there was like a few that was like, oh wow, this is like really really good. um but yeah, I like this one quite a bit.
That this one almost made the list for me. It, like obviously that last story sucked. The other anthology that could have made my list but didn't was Southbound, because again there's a couple of really good stories in that one, but so ultimately I ended up with no anthologies. I have no anthologies on my list, but but it's not because there's not some great stories in some of the anthologies that came out this year, but none of them, because even Holidays, for example, had a few that I really liked, but then quite a number that I didn't like. So that's what it is. But
yeah, sometimes it's hard to rank because it's like, all right, well, this one's really good, and even when there's ones that you like more than others, so it's kind of hard to get it up there. But yeah, I feel you.
It's hard to compare them to other movies where it's just when the movie's just the movie, whereas with an anthology there's like, well, am I comparing the best part of this movie to this movie, or am I comparing the average of all these stories, which it's hard to think about. My number 44 though is Late Phases, which is another werewolf movie actually, that I just watched this year in sort of an effort to catch up because I'd seen some recommendations for it. And the pitch for this one is really interesting. It's this old sort of army vet who's blind. This blind man joins a retirement community, and one of his neighbours on his first night there is killed by a werewolf, and he has a month till the next full moon to prepare himself so he can fight the werewolf when it comes back. The idea being that this werewolf like preys on this community because it's like easy prey, right? It's it's all these old people who people are expecting to die anyway soon, right? As morbid as that sounds. And this guy's like, no, I am going to save these people. I'm going to fight this werewolf. And he's this kind of like hard ass character who's kind of likable and speaks his mind, but he's blind. It's a blind man prepping to fight a werewolf. Now, the fault of this movie to compare it to Hull, the werewolf in this looks like absolute cheap shit. Like, it looks terrible. But the character and the prep and all that stuff and the kind of the central story of it is what makes it really work. And it's this old man who's not willing to go down. Like, he's not willing to go down without a fight. And it's kind of a good little character piece. And, just a really interesting little movie, which I recommend people check out. So,
yeah, no, I like this one a lot. And I think it might have fallen under a lot of people's radars. But, like, I think I watched it, like, a little earlier in the year, because I did also watch it this year, but I think it was like earlier. I think I just kind of stumbled upon it, and I was like, "Has anyone seen this? This is good." And I had like one friend that was like, "Oh no, it's really good. You should definitely check it out." And I think it's great. Like I agree. Yeah, the effects aren't great on it, but it's really like the main character is so I guess that you'd say likable. Like he is a hard ass for sure, but like. But you still like him. You still want to root for him and everything. And it's cool to see him like preparing and taking these things out. And so, this is a surprising one. That's actually because I feel like you said, you might see some recommendations for it, but it's not one people talk about like a ton. But it is like a very solid movie, especially when you're talking about werewolf movies. There aren't like always a ton of great ones. So it's cool that when there is.
Yeah, no, I was pleasantly surprised by this. It was a nice little I liked that it wasn't just like constantly. I loved that it was like a werewolf at the start. And it's like, okay, you've got a month, and then we don't get werewolves again until the end of the movie because it's like, no, you've got a month to get ready. And there's also obviously the mystery of who is the werewolf, and who's what's this, what's that, and that's good. So.
And hey, if you like werewolves and you want more werewolf comics, you can check out President Werewolf coming in 2020 by me, of course.
By you, yeah. All right, what's your 43, Tim?
So I think, like when I think about the decade, there's a couple of things that come to mind. Like I said, like I think social relevance is something we saw a lot in horror movies, and another thing I think that we saw a lot throughout the decade was like just the idea of technology and how that affects our lives and how we interact with it. And I don't think most movies handle it well. I think a lot just had very, surface level takes on it that were very boring.
You mean like Friend Request?
Exactly. Yeah. But I think Unfriended was one of the few examples that actually did something really interesting in it. And and then this was another one that was a surprise to me because it looked like really just like a cheap, gimmicky ploy or whatever. That was just like, oh, this is just like another kind of version of a found footage movie or whatever. But no, it's actually like different and good. And you probably could have been like a little better. Like some of the characters were annoying, but I mean, I guess that helps, when you want to see them get killed and stuff. But the way it uses the technology and kind of slowly unravels the story through it was actually really cool and interesting.
Yeah, honestly, this was quite impressive. I was expecting it to be horseshit, and it did this great thing where because you're always on this character's computer screen, you can see when she's typing something or looking at something else, or like, and all these little things would inform you about what she's thinking or about like a secret about someone else that's on the Skype call or something. There was all these little things that to help tell the story, and it was quite impressive because of that. So honestly, you take out the last like 10 seconds, which they do this cheap jump scare thing at the end, and like no, you take out that last 10 seconds, and the movie's like this great little experimental film.
Definitely.
So, good stuff. All right, my number 43 is Cult of Chucky, which was the seventh Chucky movie in the original continuity. With Don Mancini writing and directing, who of course was the writer of every movie in the original continuity and is working on the TV show that is continuing the continuity. But I like Curse of Chucky, which came earlier in the decade, and then this one came out like 2017. In fact, I think we did the entire franchise building up to this one coming out. And Call of Chucky is a solid little movie. It's got this setting of being in a mental hospital, and it's got a character from the previous film. But it just like what I think I loved about it is that it just like embraced the entire franchise, like because this franchise a couple of times felt like it rebooted, right? Bride of Chucky was kind of this. I was moving my cat. It was kind of this almost reboot into like more of a straight horror comedy, and it was all the jokes about being a doll and sex and yada yada yada. Seed kind of continued that, and then Curse kind of course corrected again to be more of a serious horror movie, where you weren't even sure if it actually had all the other movies in continuity. It wasn't until towards the end of the film that it kind of revealed no, everything that happened did happen, and there's some references to it. This movie just kind of embraced everything and like brought things back from early in the Child's Play movies and brought tons of shit back, and like they're just going nuts with the eyes. Like, where can we take this Chucky story next? And I feel like it's just being inventive and saying, okay, let's do this. Let's have the idea. Which I mean, I don't think it's much of a spoiler to say this movie poses the idea of can he be in more than one doll at once? Can there be multiple Chuckies running around? And is that terrifying or hilarious? As the case may be. So. Yeah, no, Call it Chucky.
Yeah, yeah, no, I totally agree. It's really fun. I like the setting. I like the new ideas it brings, and it's cool that, like, it's surprising that after, Bride and Seed, which, especially Bride, like I think there's fun stuff in there, but it just seems like such a joke at that point. But the fact that they were able to turn it around and actually make like, pretty good like horror movies back out of it,
Mm.
while still embracing the continuity. They don't need to make a sequel to number one.
Yeah, no,
Like so many
I
movies do.
the status quo at the end of this movie is so interesting and flipped that I actually like. I can't wait to see the TV show just because like
Yeah.
it'll continue from there. It'll be like, okay, this is where we ended.
Yeah.
So
And I feel like I was never a huge like Chucky person. Like I like the Child's Play movies growing up, but like I was never like a huge fan. And I feel like these last two movies like really like made me a little bit more of a fanboy for them, because it's like, oh, like yeah, they're still actually doing interesting stuff with these.
yeah, in on the remake, I would say 1, 2, uh, Curse and Cult are all really good, and I think Bride's a solid watch. Three's not good, but it has some moments.
Yeah.
Seed's the only one that I kind of flat out kind of hate.
Yeah.
So that's what
No, I
is.
agree. Yeah, it's definitely one of the most like consistent of the big horror franchises.
So yeah. So what's your 42?
So another kind of comedic one, The Final Girls.
Mm.
It's a really fun, little horror idea of, uh, these horror fans getting sucked into like a horror movie, like a slasher franchise. It's and again, this is probably like another thing that I feel like we've kind of seen throughout the decade was and not just in horror and other things too, but just like things being a little more meta, like having like a lot of interesting like genre takes and everything. And I thought this was a really well done version of that. The only reason why it's really solid, but the reason why it's kind of lower on my list is I don't think the horror aspect again is that great in it. Like if they could have like taken like the really interesting idea and the horror aspects and the meta aspects of it, but then also had like better kills and a little more horrorness to it, I think this actually would have been a lot more solid. But I mean, it's still like a really good fun watch, but yeah, I think it could have been a little better on that one aspect. But yeah.
I was quite impressed with the Final Girls. Although it's not necessarily the horror elements that make it impressive. I mean, sure. I think it is worth saying that, yeah, if they'd made it R-rated and went a bit more all out with the kills, yeah, that'd have been really suitable. But luckily, the actual key story it's telling that has the heart, which it does have, is actually really good. So it doesn't rely upon the kills to make it work. So that's because it is what it is. My number 42. Now, let me make this clear. This is favourites, not best. And,
Okay.
and
Interesting.
this is a movie that I was pleasantly in love with it when I saw it originally. When we watched it again for the show, I just loved it even more. My number 42 is Texas Chainsaw 3D.
Oh, okay.
I love this movie. This movie is wonderfully stupid, and I am just filled with gleeful joy. And I will say it, after the original, this is my favourite in the franchise. I like it more than 2. I like it more than 3. I like it more than the remake and everything else. Like, and it's just, it's so stupid. It's full of stupid moments and stupid ideas. It is proper cheesy B-movie nonsense. I don't think I like genuinely love a bad line of dialogue quite like "Do your thing, cuz" towards the end of that movie. And I remember, I was with friends watching it. This was when I was in college or university, whatever, and like I went to see this. I remember me and someone else just sitting laughing like constantly at how stupid some of the things that were happening were. And it was like one of the most fun experiences I had that year at the theater, and honestly, it holds up for the reasons why I like it. It holds up.
Yeah, this is one that I tentatively had on my list because, yeah, like similar to you, I remember watching it originally, and I think I kind of just brush it off as being whatever, it's kind of stupid. But then when we rewatch,
yeah, you didn't believe me. I said this was going to be great, and then you didn't believe me, and then you had to eat crow.
Yeah, when I rewatched it for the show, it's like, what, this is actually pretty fun. It's and again, like you said, yeah, it's not like, we're not talking about like good here, but like it's in terms of like fun movies, it is a really fun watch. But I wouldn't put it as high as my second favorite in the franchise. But I can maybe maybe 3 or 4, possibly. No, it is surprisingly very solid.
Yeah. Well, what's your 41?
Uh, so we're kind of talking about it a little bit, but Curse of Chucky.
Hmm.
Again, it's I'm just really impressed by the course correction they were able to do here, and there's the movie itself I think is pretty good. I think it could be better, but again, when you're talking about stuff that's surrounding it, I love that it's still like the original creator is still involved. I love that they make it a horror movie again after kind of being regulated to that like cheesy kind of comedic territory. I love that they still embrace all the continuity, and I think it's just like a solid fun movie.
Yeah. My number 41, I think it's our first repeat actually. We've went,
Oh,
8 and 9 movies without a repeat, but so Unfriended is my number 41.
oh nice.
Like I was saying earlier, very impressed with how it used the gimmick to tell the story, and even the idea that the inciting incident for the supernatural element was a video that was shared online. So everything about it is based kind of in the internet and the social media and the way people talk and treat each other online and all that stuff. So thematically, all makes sense, and like I say, I think what makes it work though is the way it tells its story, using not just dialogue and what they're saying, but what she's doing on the screen, what is she googling, what is she clicking on, what is like everything tells the story, and I think that's really impressive. So, there you go, my Freddie. What is your number 40?
Mm. I just realized I have like a theme with like the my next three, but
Hack.
this my number. Wait, why is that hack to have a theme? It doesn't.
Cause you've just put 3 similar movies together without thinking about it, so you've not.
That's not what I did. This is all based on merit. It's a merit based list.
I highly doubt this, but go on, you go.
My number 40, of course, is the one, the only, the boy. I mean, what else can you say about this movie that we haven't said? It feels like we've been talking about it for a decade at this point.
It does.
It
freaking does. Yes.
But no, it's just a solid movie with a very interesting, unique premise with a batshit crazy ending, which I love. And no, it's just a solid, decently well made. It's an easy way to kind of separate if someone is a good judge of character or not. Like if you want the kind of movie where you can be like, all right, are we gonna get along? Do you like this movie? Okay, cool. But I mean, even if you don't like the movie, you gotta give it up for the content that it's given us alone. I think we've had so many running jokes and stuff about it that
I'm just relieved it's not higher.
well, yeah, I'm a fan. I mean, I'm realist. I'm not gonna. Hey, just because I love the movie, it's not like it's not like top 10 material. But hey, if you're talking about cultural impact, if you're talking about
cultural impact. Also, Tim, you said you're a realist. Like 2 weeks ago, you said The Boy 2 might be the first horror movie to break $1 billion at the box office.
Am I? we don't know.
I know it will not.
Well, we shall see. I'll be very excited when you're forced to eat your hat on that one.
Tim, I don't even think it's going to break 200 million at the box office. Never mind 2 or 1 billion. Anyway, that should
see how many tickets I buy.
My number 40 is The Black Coat's Daughter, aka February, depending on your location. This is a cool little movie about an all-girls school, and everyone's went away for the holidays. And it's Kiernan Shipka, who went on to play Sabrina, and is it Lucy Hale is the older girl? I can't remember her name, but she popped on a few things around this time. And it's kind of this slow burn.
Roberts.
And Emma Roberts is kind of in a different part of the story, but it's this slow burn, psychological. There might be some like devil worship or something going on, and it's kind of got a creepy atmosphere that builds really nicely. This was a surprising little one because it kind of came out of nowhere for us, I think, and I really appreciated the slow burn of it all. I really felt the atmosphere the entire time, and the mystery was kind of cool. So,
Yeah, I mean, if you remember, I wasn't really hot on this one. I don't know. I it just didn't do it for me. It's like, yeah, I'm not gonna say it's like necessarily a poorly made movie, but I just couldn't really get into it. But surprisingly, though, I am excited for this guy's next movie. That was it, Gretel and Hansel. Uh,
Yes.
so I actually think that looks really good. So I'm intrigued by it. The director has some chops for sure, but just one just didn't really work for me that well.
All right. Well, we're establishing who's trustworthy. What is your number 39?
So I guess I kind of had like a little bit of a dull block for these last three.
I'm
So
shocked. I'm
yeah,
absolutely shocked.
so yeah, Curse of Chucky, the boy, and then Cult of Chucky. So yeah, another repeat here. No, I agree with everything you said. Like this is a really like interesting, cool movie. I like all the ideas it brings, and I like that it's kind of Curse was like the return to its horror form, and then this was kind of like taking that and just amping it up, where it's like, all right, yeah, so we're back to horror, but now we're doing more interesting ideas and cool kills, and yeah, just like a lot of really fun, interesting ideas, and like you said, it makes you very intrigued to see where the story's going to go. So hopefully, TV show comes out soon because I definitely want to see what's up with that.
Yeah. My number 39 is I Am Not a Serial Killer, which is so again another sort of low budget. I mean, a lot of horror movies are low budget, let's be honest, but like this is about a teenager who's a bit of a sociopath, um, who is kind of obsessed with death, and his mother works at the morgue, and he kind of helps her, and he's got this really unhealthy attitude, and doesn't seem to like care about people or anything around him. But the plot of the movie is that he starts to suspect that his neighbor is a serial killer because there's been like kids going missing, and it's set during winter, and his neighbor is played by Christopher Lloyd,
Oh,
and
nice.
it's a really fantastic little role for him that's very different than normal. And he starts following his neighbor and spying on him. And ultimately, maybe he sees something, maybe he doesn't. But Lloyd's got a great performance. The kids get a great performance. And it's kind of this idea of like, obviously the core human story is like maybe this kid does kind of actually care about people. Otherwise, why is he trying to stop a serial killer? And I just thought it was a really nice little, again, it's one of these little ones where the shooting still is going for that indie kind of drama thing. There's a lot of shaky camera. There's a lot of kind of intimate sort of, a lot of the movie takes place between these two houses and just the streets in this small town. And it has the snowy, wintry setting, and there's a lot of but there's some really good suspenseful stuff when you actually see a kill happen at one point. It's a really nice little like 5 minute set piece of like all the different parts that go into it. Honestly, the reason why it's not higher because I actually think it's got a really well made movie is I just think the ending's not perfect. Like it
Okay.
would probably be a fair bit higher if the ending really stuck the landing to what the standard of the rest of the movie was. But as it is, I still recommend it though, and think it's well worth watching for the core performances and the creepy vibes that it gives you. So,
Well,
yeah,
we didn't do this on the show, right?
no, no.
Okay, because I was like, wait, I don't think I've seen this, but then I was like, I didn't want to say it if I was like, oh yeah, I never saw it. You're like, what are you talking about? We did an episode on it, but
that has
uh,
happened. That has happened before.
yeah.
uh,
I think I keep getting, I think I keep getting this mixed up with like, what was it like the summer of '84 or
all right,
something?
yeah.
Uh, which like, because that was like another one about like some kids thinking that someone was like a killer or whatever. But
Mm.
yeah, that one I wasn't so hot on. But I'll have to check this out because yeah, that sounds pretty good. And yeah, it just seems like it'd be fun to see Christopher Lloyd back in action.
Yeah, yeah, very different role for him because obviously you usually like Christopher Lloyd, and here he's meant to be maybe a serial killer.
Uh,
Um,
but
and
I could see him though, like doing that kind of intense, especially like being older now. Like I can see him doing like an intense character like that.
yeah. What is your number 38?
So I think this was one I was a bit yeah, well, geez, I don't know why I'm having trouble thinking of what to say. I like this one a lot more than you, uh, but Satan's Slaves. This was a
Mm.
Indonesian horror film, I believe, and it kind of reminds me of like the foreign version of like Conjuring almost, because it's a very like kind of tight knit family movie that starts experiencing some paranormal supernatural stuff, and essentially it's a haunted house movie. That there's a little bit of a kind of a twist at the end. But I think it's just one of those ones that's just I like the atmosphere of it. Yeah, I think it's interesting kind of seeing this like haunted house movie, but from like a different like cultural perspective, and I think the scares are very well done. I think there's some like legitimately creepy moments, but I really like this one.
Hmm. Um, I felt it was a bit more generic, so I wasn't as super into it as you were. But yeah, fair enough. So my number 30 is a film from last year. It is called Cam. Came out on Netflix.
Yeah.
And this is about a cam girl who essentially, is replaced by a doppelganger and has no understanding of who this doppelganger is or what's happening to her account. And it's very much about the two things. It's about the fear of people around you if you're in that kind of lifestyle, and the pressures that of like stalkers and like obsession and the attention that you get, but also this idea of giving yourself over to like the internet essentially, and giving yourself over, and like how your online personality is different from your own. Like it's very much, it feels like an episode of Black Mirror. It feels like it could have been like you could have slapped the Black Mirror logo on this and it'd have felt at home. But really well done. I thought the performance from the lead actress was really good, and I thought it had some really cool moments and visuals, and it played with a really simple concept, and it never felt like it took her profession lightly. It never felt like it was making fun of her.
Yeah.
In fact, it was written by an ex-cam girl, which is why it felt so authentic. And I think it was interesting. It was very unique because it was this unique type of character that I've never seen a horror movie be based around it before. It's one of those things that we're kind of seeing, I guess, kind of like Unfriended and other stuff, where we're starting to base horror movies around types of people and types of technology that never existed before, and as a result, we're getting these unique views and unique ideas. And if they're like this and they actually have some depth to them and really explore kind of the, and have something to say about them, it can be quite good. So that's Cam.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of good things about it. Like you said, it's like showing you like kind of the lifestyle of this type of person that I feel like people don't always see, and it feels authentic because it is written by someone that did that, and no, just like a really cool like horror element to it. And again, like some of the stuff that we like themes throughout the decade that you see, like the social relevance stuff and the technology stuff, it's incorporates a lot of that into it, which is really, really well done. But this Cam is very solid.
Yeah, which 37?
So that would be Unfriended Dark Web. So I think I like this slightly more than the original. I think maybe I just kind of like the story and the characters a little bit more. And again, it's another one of those things where it could have easily kind of fallen into a gimmick from the first one, but I like that they still found new and interesting ways to kind of keep it fresh, and I was a little more engaged in the story in this one. But no, it's again just a lot of like really cool fun stuff.
I think it does a really smart thing at the start, because I wasn't because I didn't want a sequel. I thought, no, this worked once. I don't think you can do it again.
Right.
And the thing it does right at the start is that it tells us that the person who's using this laptop stole the laptop from someone else, and instantly say, oh, okay, that's interesting actually. And there's like, there's all these things of like, finding all this weird stuff. I do think that I like the story as well, but I thought the ending bugged me though. It felt like there was a the final moments, but not. I mean, as much as the final scene in the original movie bugged me, it didn't affect really what the rest of the movie was. Whereas this, I kind of hated how it almost normalized everything a bit too much at the end.
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, it was still pretty good though. I didn't like it. I liked the first one more, but like, I get why you picked it. My number 37, getting to some of the maybe the bigger names now, is A Quiet Place. John Krasinski and Emily Blunt, family, babies on the way, and we're in a world where if you make any noise at all, these monsters or aliens or whatever they are will come and get you and they will kill you. So they have to be quiet the whole time. There's a lot of whispering, a lot of sneaking around, and wonderful use of tension. Very unique experience in the theater because it's so quiet so much. And honestly, like, this was one I was looking forward to, and it mostly lived up to what I wanted it to be. I do think I had a couple of critiques, particularly with the third act, that kind of maybe stopped it from being amazing. So it'd be interesting to see if the sequel kind of improves upon it. or maybe doesn't, as the case may be. But obviously, it's full of really great set pieces, and is very well directed. And it was Krasinski who directed it, interestingly. So, and I think he's directing the second one too, even though obviously, well, yeah.
Yeah, I think at first he said he wasn't really interested in doing it, and then I think he later came out and was like, "Oh no, we got a good idea, so we're gonna take it on." But no, it's cool. Yeah, I think there was like some story elements about it that maybe felt like a little cheap or whatever, but but it was just so much fun, like playing with these rules that they establish, and again, it's just like it's a very simple idea, but it's a very fun one that they execute really well. So. Yeah, very solid.
Yeah. What is your number 36?
So it's another repeat one you talked about a little earlier, but that would be Late Phases. Yeah, again, just like a very solid werewolf pick, and maybe some of the kills and effects could have been better, but really it's the story of this this man, this retired badass who you can tell he's like really doesn't. He hates kind of being like in this community and having to be reliant on anyone. But I like that he, still like accepts like becoming a part of it, and kind of feels like it's his duty to protect these people and stuff. And it's even though he's like hard, like you do kind of come to love him and root for him, and it's just really solid, fun, cool idea for a movie.
My number 36 is Revenge, which came out last year, and essentially it's a rape revenge movie, I suppose, when you boil it down to what it is. Very stylistic, though. I love how it's shot. The lead character, like her kind of like rise back is great. I think what put this over the edge for me in terms of getting it on this list and to this slot was probably the final 20-30 minutes of cat and mouse, and the sort of the actual chase between her and or I guess the main villain, as it were. But obviously it's uncomfortable in places, as a movie like this should be, but very pretty to look at. There's all this sort of nice locations out in France, and lots of bright, vivid colors, and it really like gets to this point where she has to kind of get really tough to kind of fight back, and the cat and mouse stuff at the end is really good. I guess it's when it gets its most inventive, and it is one thing actually, which is probably true, is that I haven't actually went through and counted like how many of these movies in my top 50 are directed by women. It's probably relatively a small amount in the grand scheme of things, but I'm willing to bet you it's more than if we did top 10 for the 2000s, which we probably will do at some point. I guarantee you the numbers went up, and this was one of the female directed movies. So I'm pointing that out because I think it's good for the type of story it is to have it be a female voice.
Totally. Yeah.
When we're dealing with this particular subject, it makes a lot of sense to have it be from that perspective. So
yeah, I think that we've seen a lot of examples of that kind of story that just feels like gratuitous and kind of like icky to watch. And there definitely are really hard parts of this to watch, but again, the style is so good, and then what you want from these movies is, it's the title of the movie. You want to see the person get their revenge, and sometimes it's not always handled the best, but like this movie, you're rooting for this person so much, and every time she gets the drop on like one of these guys, it's so satisfying that this is a really terrific little film.
What is your number 35?
So that would be one that you said is not going to be on your list, but guess what? It's on mine. That is Southbound. So another anthology movie. I really, really like this one. Actually, I think I watched it I saw it twice. I saw it once in theaters. I was playing at a small theater out here, and then once again for the show. But I really want to go back and watch it again because I really, really like it. Like a lot of anthologies, not every story is perfect. But I think it has like really interesting idea and concept around it, and the ones that are done well are done really, really well. I think especially the
surgery one.
The surgery one is so damn good. I love that one. But I think this movie's a blast. So really fun.
No, Southbound was really good, but as you say, there was one or two stories I didn't like as much. But definitely
Yeah.
that and Nightmare Cinema are definitely the two anthologies that I liked the most of the decade.
Oh, without a doubt,
But
yeah.
I wouldn't put either on my top 50 just because you know hard to compare them. But my number 35 is one that you weren't that keen on actually, from
Ooh.
2016. This is The Monster. Or was it 2017? Maybe 2017. But
Oh, right. Yeah.
yeah, this is
It took me a second to think of what it was.
yeah, this is oh god, what's her name from the Big Sick? Zoe Kazan, I say Zoe Kazan. That sounds right. Anyway,
I can picture it in my head. I
yeah,
can't think of the name.
she's this mother, and she's kind of a shitty mother, and she's taken her daughter to live with her dad and to sort of get rid of her. And that's kind of the human drama of the story. But the car breaks down, and there's a monster sort of in the woods, and it's coming to get them. And it's you know it's kind of a metaphor about the monster that she is to her daughter. That, but through this, maybe she like sort of like does the right things and tries to save her and whatever, and maybe the idea that our daughter can kind of like still come out of this okay, and so on and so on. But I just really like, again, this is kind of this simple idea where a lot of the movie is like once they've broken down, they're on this one bit of road, and they're there for a long time, but until they're very just secluded, and it's raining the whole time. I think the monster looks pretty cool. Some interesting effects, and the performances from both the adult and the kid are both pretty solid. And for me, this, like, because it gave it some weight behind it, and the flashbacks of seeing like how much of a shitty mother she's been, and how she's neglected her daughter, and how this is kind of her last chance to really do something for her. Really kind of, I thought it worked well enough. It was a lean 90-minute movie that I don't know, had a lot of good beats, I thought, and I was really into the middle of it the whole time.
Yeah, needed more monster for me.
Ah, such a simpleton. Such a simpleton. All right, Tim, what is your number 34?
So another repeat here. You mentioned it earlier, but Paranormal Activity 3, which is kind of funny because I was thinking about stuff to add to the list, and then I was like, this doesn't really feel like of the decade to me. Maybe because it takes place in the past, but I was surprised when I looked it up that I was like, oh no, this counts. And then I mean, I think it was early, like 2010, 2011, something like that. But which I guess is old at this point. But no, I was happy to include it on there. Yeah, like everything you said, it's like it's very inventive with what it does. I like that it stands out, and it's different. It has really cool, simple ways of getting the scares, and yeah, it's just really solid, and I like that it definitely stands out to me as being probably like the best of the franchise, which it isn't the best franchise. A lot of it does end up being kind of samey and kind of plays off the usual found footage tropes that we have, but no, this one stands out as being actually like pretty good.
No, I mean, I said my piece. I agree. So,
Yeah.
my number 34 is The Conjuring 2, which I do think is better than the first one. I love how inventive it gets. I love it has a bit of a kitchen sink attitude to it. But I think the reason why I like this one more is because this one really focuses on Ed and Lorraine and makes them kind of the main characters that we care about, as opposed to the family. And the family are still there, and we still care about them a little bit, but it's really about their kind of romance with each other, their relationship, and to the point where you're actually kind of like worried more about one of them getting killed during the big final climax than you are about any of the kids or whatever. Like, you care about them.
Yeah.
And it feels like it really puts them at the forefront of, like, okay, it's almost like like when we're watching Ghostbusters, we're not following the people who are like being haunted. We're following the Ghostbusters being called out to do it. And I'm not comparing this to Ghostbusters in tone or style or anything like that, but just in the sense that it feels like, no, our main characters are the ghost hunters, not the family who are being haunted this time.
Yeah.
Whereas I think the first one, I mean, it wasn't. I wouldn't say it was definitely just the family who were the main characters, but it did veer more towards that, I think.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, there's a lot of really good like set pieces and scares in this one, and
unfortunately, it did birth like 3 different spin-offs, all of which I ended up sucking, but whatever.
Yeah, like I'm trying to think, because it's hard because some of the stuff, like, since there are so many, like, the same characters in different ones, sometimes it kind of gets jumbled around, but this is the one that has like the scare where it's like the shadow is going across the room and then into the painting, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
it
like
has
that's probably
that.
like one of the
It has
that's
Crooked
probably like one of my
Man.
favorite parts of the
Yeah.
movies series.
It has the Nun, obviously, which was actually like something they added like after the fact. That was reshoots and post and stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, and obviously it got a spin off. So, yeah. Joe was so annoyed is that they started churning out Annabelle so quick that Annabelle got to the third movie before the Conjuring's not even there yet. Conjuring's not getting its third
That's
movie till
funny.
next year. Oh, so weird. But hey, we'll probably have Annabelle 4 before long.
Yeah.
Just you watch. All right, what's your number 33?
So number 33 is 10 Cloverfield Lane. Um, and this is I was kind of debating this for a while because I really really like the movie, but I was trying to think like when you get really nitpicky about something, it's like, would you call this a horror movie? It's like, I don't know if you want to say there's some sci-fi elements, or maybe if it feels more like like a thriller or anything. But it's like, whatever. I don't care. I'm just gonna put it on the list. No, it's super solid. John Goodman's terrifying in it. It was really cool to see him in this role where, and it's that creepy like thing where he's not like yelling and screaming at you and threatening you, but he's just like he's like that something's off about him and you're not quite sure what he's capable of, but you kind of slowly learn more and more like throughout the movie what he can do. And it's really cool, like engrossing film with like really interesting performances, and the end maybe gets like a little, I don't mind the ending, but it definitely does kind of feel like a little bit against like what most of the movie is about, but like it's still cool. But yeah, I like this a lot.
I like Cloverfield a lot as well, actually. Um, Good performances. John Goodman's great, just say. I love the claustrophobia. I love that it is all set in this bunker, and you're left to wonder until quite late on, like, is there any truth to all this stuff that he's saying about the outside world?
Yeah.
So really, really good. My number 33 is one that we did in the show a few years ago. It's called Eyes of My Mother. It was all in black and white, and I'll be honest, the actual story of this, I can't actually recollect a lot of it. I can tell you that, this girl goes through some traumatic stuff as a kid and then becomes dangerous herself when she's older. But it's like 75 minutes long. It's all black and white. There's a lot of long shots of just the camera sitting there as things happen. And it's a little art house horror movie, and I loved it. Like, I loved the feeling, the tone, the way you knew something was happening, and the camera would just sit back in the corner, and you'd see people walk out of frame and walk back into frame, and it would sit there. It was so confident, and this was like a directorial debut as well. And it's like, man, this director, like, I'm going to have to look up and see if the directors went on to do anything else, because it's.
I think he has had something else. I forget what it was, but it's. I don't know if it's something we did for the show or something that's coming up.
I'm about to find out, but really stylish and slow burn. Really into it.
Yeah, no, I actually like this one too, and the style's great, and then the opening is so like, that, like if you just watch like that first like whatever like 10 or 15 minutes alone, it's like you can tell you're in for like some like messed up stuff, but it's great.
Oh, okay. So he did a movie in 2018 called Piercing, which we've just missed. And a man kisses his wife goodbye and seemingly heads away on business with a plan to check into a hotel, call an escort service, and kill an unsuspecting prostitute. This sounds pretty good, actually. Mia Wasikowski's in it. We may have to squeeze this in soon. And he is doing something soon as well. He's doing the Grudge remake.
Oh, okay, interesting.
That movie just got far more interesting, quite frankly.
We shall see. So I think Piercing was the one I was thinking of. I remember hearing people talk about that movie. I think, unfortunately, people said it's not as good as this one, but I'm sure it's still, worth checking out.
I mean, hell, it was intriguing enough that I'd want to. Yeah. And to be fair, it's not like the Eyes of My Mother's actually rated that highly in IMDb anyway. So, but for something that might appeal to our art house sensibilities, it may just hit the spot. So I want to see Pearson all of a sudden. So yeah, that was my number 33. Eyes of My Mother. What's your 32?
So that would be Veronica. So from half of the team that brought us Rec, this is just another not a haunted house movie, but like a possession movie. But again, I thought it was just really well done. Yeah, like the atmosphere, the performances are great. And like some generally cool, creepy scares. Like this is one of those ones that when it came out, they had all those annoying articles about it, like like people are too scared to sleep after watching this movie, which like come on, it's not that bad. But I do think there are like some generally creepy stuff in it, and yeah, pretty solid.
Yeah, that's almost made my list. I thought some of the possession tropes were a little bit tropey, I guess. Like, just a little bit, by the numbers. But what really made this work was the drama and the character stuff. It was this sister taking care of her siblings, and it made me really care about her and her family. And it kind of did this interesting thing where, like, the whole movie's really about trying to possess her as opposed to someone who's possessed already, kind of thing. And I thought that was an interesting point of view to take it down. So, no, it's really good. I just missed sort of making my list, but solid pick. My number 32 is, funnily enough, 10 Cloverfield Lane. And
close.
Very close. Tim said a lot of, obviously, what needs to be said, but I love how claustrophobic it is, and the fear of starting to believe you're being held against your will, and you're trying to sort of get around it, but the guy's crazy, so so I don't really have to add much. I've talked about it already, but really good. What is your 31?
So it could be wrong. I don't think you've seen this, but we'll see. I mean, maybe we did an episode on it. I don't know. But that would be A Dark Song.
No, I haven't seen this actually.
I haven't seen it. Okay. No, we should probably do it on the show. But no, it's pretty solid. So basically, the premise is we have like a mother who's lost her son, and she wants to see him again. She wants to speak to him, and so she hires someone to like bring him back, essentially. And so that's not like a necessarily original premise. We kind of seen those things before. People resort to magic or whatever to bring back a loved one.
All I'm hearing is the LSC to the door here. You better make this more interesting.
No. Well, here's what's interesting about it. The movie is all about the ritual that they have to do to make this happen. So it's like this, kind of magician, warlock guy or whatever, basically holds up in a house with this woman and has to essentially like put her through, all these tasks and different, like sacrifices and spells and stuff that she has to do. So it's really fascinating looking at it from that aspect where, I feel like that's something we haven't really seen before, where it's like, oh, okay, so the whole movie is about the ritual, that you have to do, as opposed to, oh, we did this thing and now this creepy kid's back and we have to run from it or whatever. It's a really interesting take on it, and then obviously it goes places and stuff. But I really dig this movie.
Yes, never ending list of movies we need to do on the show.
Yeah.
add it to it. My number 31 is going to last year, and this is when you may dislike this one. For some, I've got a vague memory of you not liking this. Overlord. Okay.
Oh yeah, no, I absolutely hate this movie.
Yeah, I don't know why. I actually, this is a weird one where me and Matt reviewed it, even though it felt like it probably should have been a Streams movie, just because Matt really wanted to see it, and I had a blast. I think this is a great B movie. This is a great B movie with a bunch of great actors, really visceral action, and it's about set in World War II, but the Nazis are doing these weird zombie experiments and creating these superhumans, and but it had some really good tense moments. It has a really great attitude that I thought, and I was really into it. Like I had a blast with this movie. I have no idea why you don't like this.
I mean, I think it looks horrible. I think it takes way too long for it to get to its premise. Like it's pretty much like an hour before you actually see any like zombies,
Ah,
and
but
I think it takes
all the hiding in the house is great, Tim. No, I'm
no. No, I think it's such a B movie premise that takes itself so seriously that there's like no fun in it whatsoever. Like, if your movie is Nazi zombies, then and you know you need to embrace the cheese of that. Instead, they try. It's so deathly serious. I really did not like
I kind of liked
any
how.
aspect of it.
No, I love when B movies take themselves seriously. I love like we're going to roll with this goofy concept, but we're going to treat it that like it's one thing when it's not working and they treat it seriously and it feels kind of weird. But this reminds me of like I don't know, like this isn't a horror movie, but I don't know if you saw Brawl in Cell Block 99, for example. Like
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
that just takes itself dead seriously the whole time,
Mm.
and it feels like it's really well made because of it. Like, and I feel the same about Overlord. Overlord, I think it's a blast. So
Well, I mean, yeah, yeah. Obviously, I'm not. I don't want to argue your pick or anything, but just since we didn't do it on the show, that's kind of my short little spiel about why I didn't like it. But I mean,
mhm.
it didn't work for me. I know that it seems like a lot of people did seem to like it, so all the more power to you. But yeah, it's not my bag.
Uh-huh. Overlord, better than the boy. You heard it here
Oh,
first, folks.
come on! Now you're being crazy. Come on.
No, absolutely accurate. What's your number 30, you heathen?
May the Devil Take You, another Indonesian movie. This one kind of like the other one, Satan Slays. I felt like we watched them pretty close together, but that kind of felt to me like the Indonesian version of The Conjuring. This to me feels like the Indonesian version of Evil Dead, which just a really blast. Again, not perfect. I think maybe could have been trimmed down at parts, but it was a cool kind of like uh I guess not really haunted house, more maybe more of a possession thing because there's like demons and stuff in it. But again, there's like some really fun scares and gore and some like legitimately like tense moments and yeah, really really cool movie.
Hmm. Yeah. No, I had fun with this too. I don't think it all necessarily added up to like a whole that I liked,
I
but there's a lot of good stuff in there because the ending was a bit just kind of
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, I think I think there is flaws in it. I definitely agree with that. To me, it's just the stuff that's good is really good and stands out to me as like the kind of shit that I like. So I think like
Mm,
that's enough for me to really kind of propel it.
yeah. Um. Okay. So that was your 30, right? Yeah. My number
Yeah.
30 is Hush, which is the movie where it's a very simple premise. A deaf woman is home alone, and a serial killer basically is stalking her, but realizes that she's deaf, and then proceeds to try and sort of play games of cat and mouse with her and have fun with her because hey, she's kind of vulnerable, and I can really mess with this. And it's full of great moments, and I actually think that Mike Flanagan is a good director. He is. He's made a lot of good 2/3 of movies. He's done that a lot for me, and I feel like this is my favorite of his because it's the one where I actually like the whole thing. I actually like the ending.
Yeah.
Whereas other movies all kind of falter for me once they get towards the end. But really, really good stuff.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, so yeah, I'll leave it there. It's good.
No, it's solid. It's really fun. It plays well with the premise. There's a few things like I wasn't crazy about with it, so I actually don't have it on my list, but it is like a very solid pick. I like it, but yeah, just altogether, it could have been a little better, but that's good.
Which is 29.
um, I don't know if you mentioned this yet because you talked about the sequels, but mine is the first Insidious. So no, I mean, and again, it's a really solid, great little. I feel like we've seen the twist now, but like at the time, it was it felt relatively new to have a haunted house movie, but be like, oh, the house isn't haunted; it's your son that's haunted. Like, oh, that's cool, and then like just good performances, and again, talking about you know, like big mainstream Hollywood. Well, I guess at this time probably wasn't that big because it wasn't really established yet, but for like the kind of Hollywood horror movies. This one was actually surprisingly well, and like I always remember when I saw it going to the theater. I hadn't really heard much about it. I went like on a late Sunday night, and I think I was like maybe one of two or three people in the theater, and then like by the end when the lights came on, like I did feel legitimately creeped out because it was like a lot of stuff that maybe might feel a little generic now, but at the time, like some of the scares and stuff I hadn't really seen quite like that, and yeah, it's a really well done, cool stuff in it.
No, I love the mythology of Insidious. I love where it goes in the back half, and if again, it feels really playful and inventive. It keeps adding more stuff, and like because at first I'm like, oh, it's just another haunted house movie or it's another haunted kid movie, but it very quickly starts to really dive into all this crazy stuff that kind of makes it feel like no, there's a lot more thought into this. There's a lot more ideas
Yeah.
here. So yeah, I said this is great. My number 29 is The Ritual,
Oh, nice.
which was a movie that uh, kind of slipped by for a little bit, and we did it just a little bit later than we otherwise might have done. And it was a really impressive movie about a monster in the woods hunting these guys who are on like a sort of backpacking trip
Mm.
in Europe. They're there to scatter the ashes of their friend who died in an incident. And it's actually about the main character who's kind of dealing with his guilt over being a bit of a coward, and might even be partially responsible for the death of their friend. And it's kind of all about his journey and him getting over this. But there's also this really cool stuff, which I won't go into for spoiler's sake. But I will say where it actually goes in the last act is kind of batshit in a really cool way,
Yeah.
and I really like how things look. I'll just say, and it's a directed movie as well. It's really well directed. So
Yeah. No, this I love this one. This is a bit of a surprise for me because yeah, I don't think I'd heard much about it going in, and then it seemed like it kind of just popped up on Netflix, and even watching it, like the beginning, it's good, but it's not really indicative of where the movie goes. So it's like, okay, this is interesting, but what's up? And then yeah, without giving too much away, what it ends up going into is like some of my like favorite stuff, including let's say like the designs of some of the things in it are unlike many things you'll see in other movies, and yeah, I really really like that aspect of it.
yeah, it's a really solid movie.
Yeah.
So what's your number 28?
So another one that you had brought up previously, but that is Revenge. Yeah, again, I won't dwell on it too much, but yeah, it's very solid. It's dealing with subject matter that isn't always handled the best, but they managed to incorporate so much style into it, and you just really, really root for the character in this, that it makes it so satisfying. Anytime she gets her revenge, but really solid.
Spoken like a true poet.
Yeah.
My number 28 is It Comes at Night, which is a movie that you weren't as keen on, actually, if I remember right.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Um,
wasn't crazy about it.
I really enjoyed this. For me, like the actual horror element of it wasn't necessarily the actual sort of creeping around in the dark. All that stuff looked really good. There was a lot of great uses of light and that stuff. For me, this was more about just people being paranoid about each other and not trusting each other, and the horror that comes from that. And I thought that stuff was handled very effectively. Some good performances, some really tense moments, and yeah. So It Comes at Night, my number 28.
Yeah, I don't have much to say about it because honestly, I don't remember it too much. But yeah, I just remember it not being my thing that much.
That's fine. That's fine. Also better than The Boy. Everything on my list is better than The Boy. I mean, that's just straight up truth. What is your number 27?
So this was one I was waffling about a bit. I think it's an insanely great movie, but it's also one of those ones where you start to nitpick about, all right, technically, is this horror? And I guess it counts enough. It'd be one of those ones where you can be like, oh, maybe more of a thriller, but again, horror thriller, what the hell is the difference? Who cares? So my 27 is I Saw the Devil. I mean, come on, this movie rules, man. I don't know. It's essentially, I believe a South Korean, I think.
Mm-hmm.
film. And so essentially it's there's this man who has a tragedy at the beginning where a serial killer takes a wife, I believe it's his pregnant wife or fiance, is killed by the serial killer, and this guy finds out who the serial killer is, and then the whole movie is him, like, not even like hunting him, well, I guess like hunting him down, but like he continually catches him, but he wants his revenge so much that it's never good enough for him just to kill him or turn him into the police. He's constantly like playing this cat and mouse game because he just wants to keep torturing him over and over again. So it's like this chase movie where the killer at the beginning ends up becoming like the victim, but you don't have any sympathy for him. But also it's like leading the main character down such a spiral that it's like it's hard to feel too much sympathy for him. But it's a really, really great movie.
Oh, it's a fantastic movie. I love it, in fact. But I've never counted it as horror, so it's not on my list.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't know. It's a tough one, but I don't know. It's close enough. Like, I don't know what else you would say, would thriller or whatever, but
That's a thriller, but I mean, whatever. I'm not gonna, like, if you count it as horror, it's on your list. You can count it as horror.
Yeah.
But
if it wasn't so good, I would be like, maybe not. But it's like, I want to put it on here.
By that logic, like, you could put like Endgame on here. Well, it's so good, so I'm counting it as horror.
Well, I mean, like, there aren't really any horror aspects of it. I mean, with this, I mean, there's like brutal, kills and gore, and there's a serial killer. So I mean, what's not horror about that?
Yeah. My number 27 is Don't Breathe, which was again, a really fun little inventive movie. Sometimes I love the movies where there's just a simple little concept, and this concept is some thieves break into a house to steal something, and they think it's going to be an easy job because the man in there is blind, but he happens to be the most badass, like, crazy ass blind man ever, and it becomes this horror movie where they have to try and stay quiet because this blind man will otherwise hear them and try and kill them or whatever. And it's really fun. It's from the same director as the Evil Dead remake, which I really liked as well. And Jane Levi's in there; she's great. Stephen Lang is great as the old man, and it goes to some crazy places, which you don't, I think, you expect going in. It's well worth not having it spoiled for you. I know the crazy places it goes turn some people away, and they like think it sort of jumps the shark, as it were. I kind of get into the absurdity of it, and I think. Fede Alvarez, who made this, seems to be consistently a director who makes roller coaster rides of movies where I feel every kind of like bit of impact. I feel every disgusting thing that happens. Everything either makes me go ooh or ah, or like everything has an effect on me. And they're very popcorn horror movies, but they're very well done popcorn horror movies that don't feel like they're. They're not jump scared. I mean, there's some jump scares in this, but it's all very well done and tense the entire time. So Don't Breathe, very good.
No, yeah, I agree. It's funny. There's a lot of like horror movies that play with sound, like in this decade.
Yes.
But no, there's a lot of like really good tension and set pieces. This one was close for me. I didn't put it on my list, but I don't know. I feel like maybe there's a few things I don't know, I could have done a bit better. I'm okay with the whatever you want to call it, the twist or whatever. Like that's fine. Maybe I don't know if I necessarily love it, but it's interesting enough. But no, it is a very solid movie though.
Okay. What's your 26? What's your final entry for this part?
That would be You're Next. Yeah.
No, you're like next.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. This is just like a really cool, fun. I remember like when it was coming out, like a lot of the buzz was about it had like like all these like different kind of horror people involved in like some of the like different roles and stuff, and it's just a really fun movie about people hunting people down. But I love the kind of the incompetentness of like the killers, and it's another movie where again you really love the main character and you just start to really empathize with her and really want to see her get the revenge. And when she does, it's great, and like some really cool brutal kills in it. So very fun movie.
Yeah. I love Your Next. I think it's such a great sort of twist on the genre. One of the most badass female leads of the decade. The final girl who's actually capable and is basically like has the skills of John Rambo, and what that leads to for all the killers that are trying to like descend upon this house party. Super fun. This is one I went to see expecting nothing. I went to see it to pass time with a friend and ended up loving it. And it's so fantastic. No, I'm on board. My number 26, my last movie of this half, is a do you know what I will say about my list is I am disappointed how little foreign films there is on it, which to me says that we've not done enough from this decade. Obviously we've done some. You've mentioned a couple that I didn't care for as much, but this is a French film called Raw, and this is a coming-of-age cannibal movie about a girl, a vegetarian or vegan, who is just joined university, and as a sort of hazing ritual, she is forced to eat like a piece of rabbit of some kind, and it gives her this taste for blood. And it's all very metaphorical about coming of age and her sexual sort of awakening and all these different things, but it's a really well-directed, well-performed movie. It has a lot of disgusting scenes of her eating various things that really make you cringe. And it's really good. Like it really stuck with me when we did it. It's the kind of thing where it's like a very kind of, not in your face horror movie. A lot of it is just kind of the slow burn, the slow sort of build of it, and the inner sort of need kind of rising. But it stuck with me. It really stuck with me.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it's there's some pretty grotesque scenes, but no, it's a really good movie. And the concept is good, but like you said, it's all the coming of age and kind of like sexual awakening stuff. This like repressed person is really interesting and captivating.
Yeah. So there you go. That is the first half of our top 50 of the decade. Numbers 50 through 26. You'll be back next time with numbers 25 through number 1, so you don't want to miss that, do you? I don't think you do. No, don't. So you can guess that. You can let us know what you think of our picks so far in the comments below. You can like and subscribe and all the usual things. You can get us on the Twitters at Screams Midnight. You can support us, of course, by rating the podcast on Apple Podcasts. Give us 5 stars. More people will find us that way. You can support us financially over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. In fact, this is a good time to thank our Patreon producers. So thank you to David Short, Alison M. Fordyce, Cindy Palacios, and Tyler Hess. Those are our Patreon producers for the month, and that means that they are $20 and up on the Patreon tiers. But you don't have to do that, of course. If you want to support us over there, you can do it for as little as $1 per month, and that $1 will get you access to an exclusive monthly episode. We've got a back catalogue of about 12 or 13 episodes now. So go over and every dollar counts, every one matters, and you can keep the content coming and support us and get access to some bonuses for your troubles. So go and do that. Otherwise, though, that's pretty much us. So thank you once again. If you're enjoying these countdowns, there's a bunch happening around the same time on the various shows. Top 25 sci-fi of the decade happened on the Atomic Cinema Experiment. Top 50 movies in general with me and Connor over in 121. We also did top 25 TV shows of the decade. There's a lot of decade lists happening right now. Before we get to best of year stuff in a couple of months' time, we like to give ourselves some time to catch up on movies we might have missed. But we're doing all the decade stuff right now. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching scary movies, guys, and we will see you next time.